Welcome back to Downforce Debrief. And I'm going to be honest, this week, I have no notes. But we have no idea what we're going to talk about today. We've got a couple of vague ideas, and that's about it. Not a race week, not as much to talk about this week. And it's honestly a little bit of a slow news week in F1 this week as well. But we've got a couple of main talking points. First of which is Red Bull. Red Bull. Now, obviously, we've spoken to death about Verstappen and Tsunoda and Lawson and yada yada, but I want to talk a bit more generally about what the hell is wrong with that team. Because if you remove Verstappen out of that team, which is entirely possible, he may choose to leave at any point, he may choose to retire at any point, he might get injured or something. Are Red Bull seriously just like barely going to score any point? Are they like at the lower end of the midfield? Is that seriously where we think Red Bull would be without Verstappen? And is that a Verstappen thing that he's doing that, or is it he just the only one able to get that out of the car? I mean, obviously Verstappen can't break the laws of physics, so clearly the car is theoretically capable of that. But I don't know. It's just it's we've had so many drivers now have a go at that second seat, none of which are able to do really anything in that car. So are Red Bull screwed? I mean, what the hell are they? What's going wrong over there? DB, have you got any answers?
No, I don't. yes, they are. I think listen to Nico Rosberg's comments in the last day or two, talking about Isaac Hadjar, because I think Hadjar is one name we've got to mention within this as being part of that Red Bull family. Probably again, removing Max, probably the strongest performing driver within that bracket at the moment. Nico Rosberg said, do not go. If Red Bull approach you, do not go, decline it. And it's an interesting one, because can you do that realistically? Yes, we now know from multiple examples that staying at RB is probably going to give him better results. He'll probably get on with the car better. Does that, or is there a wider picture to consider though, going to a top team like Red Bull? It's an interesting one. I fully understand why someone like Nico Rosberg, obviously a lot of pedigree as well, former world champion, would say that. It's an interesting one though. I don't know. I still think you've got a stage to prove yourself, but I completely agree with what you alluded to. Is like literally anyone, nobody right now surely can look past Max Verstappen, like if he leaves, or as you said, injured or whatever, that they are screwed right now. On paper, they are absolutely screwed. So yeah, it's not looking good.
But it's just like it's a bigger point, isn't it, than just the drivers? Like, obviously Verstappen's an incredible driver. We all know that. Like he clearly is he's the only one capable of extracting that out of the car, whatever. I guess there's two ways to look at it. One, are they just building that car around Max, who's got a very specific driving style? Maybe. Or are they just building a car that, frankly, isn't very good in the hands of anyone else apart from this one guy who happens to be able to extract everything out of it? It's probably a bit of both, honestly. But it's just such a weird thought experiment to think, if Max leaves, are they genuinely just mid now? Like, because on paper, if Max leaves, Red Bull, the main Red Bull team, would be in a worse championship position than the VCARB team, which is like, what? Like, because it's not like, okay, like Lawson coming in, he was quite fresh and stuff like that. Like, I get it, Lawson maybe didn't work. Perez was a genuinely decent driver when they went. That's why they signed him. Tsunoda has looked decent in the VCARB. Like, don't get me wrong, he's not on Max's level. We all know that. But is he like 0.8 a second off Max? I mean, surely not that much. That's insane. We had, Gasly there. We had Ricciardo there. Ricciardo was the last person to actually better match Max, to be fair. Gasly, Sainz, like all drivers we know now are really decent drivers. Like, genuinely, like, not quite top level, but not that far below that. And they couldn't do anything either. So, like, if their car could only be driven by one superstar driver, then are they just screwed for the future? And I liken this to MotoGP. I know you don't watch MotoGP, GB, but Marc Marquez at Honda was the only rider capable of doing anything with that bike. And he was still capable of winning on it. It basically is the exact same story, to be honest. He was capable of winning on the Honda still, even though they'd fallen behind in development and other bikes were just better. And in MotoGP at the time, they had, I don't know, maybe 6 bikes on the grid that were all Hondas. And all of them would be like 14th, 15th. And then there'd be like Marc Marquez, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. It's like ridiculous. Again, the same as what we're seeing. And then Marquez left. And then they were genuinely down that low, and then they've had to now kind of rebuild from there. And I think Red Bull are going the same way. I just don't know what the solution would be for them. Like, because they had Adrian Newey, right, widely considered as one of the greatest designers of all time, yada yada. He's obviously left now, but that's irrelevant to this whole talking point because it was happening before while he was still there as well. So is it just a fundamental like thought process change needed at Red Bull, or I mean, will it genuinely benefit them in the long term if Verstappen leaves because they're not concentrating on this one guy? I don't really know.
I want to interrupt you on the Adrian Newey point because I was actually just while you were talking then I did a little bit of scrolling. I remembered a tweet I put out maybe in some point in like March, and I got a bit of slander for it, and it was basically implying the same thing around the car being built around Max. And someone replied to that tweet with a quote from an article from Adrian Newey saying, I think people get very confused with designing a car around a driver and a driver who's very, very quick and wants a car a certain way. Sorry, that was from Alex Albon that said that quote. And yeah, it's again, the quote expands saying, of course, you're going to listen to the driver who's getting the performance in and putting a good job because the potential is more. And maybe it's at that point where the car is not built for Max, but it's the way it's been kind of molded and adapted is such that another driver comes in and they just cannot extract what Max can out of it. And that's not necessarily saying that Max is incredible and no one else can drive this car. We know that he is incredible, right? But it's a separate topic. It's more that Max's driving style is potentially so different, and the direction that Red Bull have gone in means that anyone else stepping in is kind of unable to match that or get close. I do firmly believe that if you put anyone in that second Red Bull seat, whether it was Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, I still think it's going to be a similar result because of the reason I just said. So I think it's less about the caliber of the second driver and more about, which to be fair, you may have been saying. So maybe I've just waffled for nothing. But hopefully adds a
That's
bit
this
of
whole podcast, mate. You're smashing it. You nailed it there.
Hopefully this is adding a bit of substance that, like, building on Albon's comments, it does give a bit more kind of like meat to the sandwich that it's not just a case of, oh, Max is phenomenal and everyone else is rubbish, because clearly that isn't true. It's maybe that Red Bull have kind of, I don't want to say put all their eggs in one basket, because I don't even think it's that deep. I just think they've got an amazing driver. They had an amazing, obviously they had Adrian Newey, they developed an amazing car, and then they just kept kind of like refining and directing it in the way that they thought was right with the feedback from Max. And, you know, the timesheet doesn't lie. The Max was rapid, the car was rapid. And so that's the route they went down. And potentially maybe that's why they're kind of left in this situation now. Because what I was going to add to that, just as a final point, was that obviously we've got 2026 around the corner. So I don't know, maybe they opt to kind of change that. Maybe they opt for, I don't even know whether it's correct to say like a more stable or normally balanced car, because I don't think that's the way. It's not like they're purposely making a car that's unbalanced, but you get my point. With 26 around the corner, maybe that's their kind of chance to hit the reset button and to go in a different direction for the future of the team.
But Tsunoda literally came out in one of the recent races and said, like, I don't really know where to go from here. Like, the car feels all right. Like, there's no specific, like, it's not like a massive struggle in one area. The car in general feels all right. I'm just going a lot slower than Max, and I don't really know why, which is interesting. I don't know. I honestly think to some extent it might be on Max. Like, is Max the problem in a weird way? Because he's so good and because he can drive any car, because he's that talented. So then he goes, well, I want as much front end as possible because I'll deal with the back end. Let me give the car rear downforce because I've got insane car control. Just give me as much front downforce as you can. I'll make it quick. But obviously that's not how you normally design a car. You normally design a balanced car for any given driver. So is Max almost a net negative on the team, even though it's giving him the car he can drive? Because Max can drive any car. So give Max an understeery car, and we're not. I don't think anyone's imagining that give Max an understeery car or give Red Bull an understeery car, suddenly Perez can match him and Lawson can match him and Tsunoda can match him. I think Max, no matter the car, will surely beat his teammate. But is Max's requests almost a bad thing because he's that good almost? It's a really weird kind of thing to say. But also in modern history in F1, I can't think of any other consistent level of teammate gap. I mean, we've had dominant eras from Mercedes recently, right? And okay, I think we all agree that Bottas was never really going to win a championship over Hamilton, but it was never remotely this bad. There may have been the odd day when it was up towards a second in qualifying, maybe if it was an off day. But generally, in qualifying in particular, Bottas was very good, normally within half a tenth or a tenth. Really close. Even a bad day, Hamilton has a great day, it's like 3/10. Not that much. Rosberg was even closer, certainly in race trim. Before that, we had Red Bull dominating again with Vettel and Webber most of the time. Again, like the gaps between them were really small. We've just never seen this, even in the Schumacher era. It's never been that big.
Ferrari as well, right? Vettel and Raikkonen, exactly the same thing. There were gaps, but again, nothing like what we see with Max. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just on another plane, and that to me is really. I think we always just say, oh, yeah, but it's Max, he's so good. Oh, yeah, but that other driver's not very good. Or Red Bull have actually got the best car or the second best car, but maybe they haven't. Maybe the car is theoretically capable of doing what Max is doing because Max is showing that it is theoretically capable of doing that. But, like, I'm theoretically capable of setting a world record in a marathon, but I'm actually probably not. But you get my point? Like, just because something's theoretically possible, that's not a realistic thing to do. It's a bad example, but I don't even know what the answer is. Because, like I said, Tsunoda's come out and said it's not even that bad. So I don't know. It's just, I do wonder if Max goes to another team, let's say Max does go to Mercedes or whoever it is, and the same thing happens, do we then think Max is a worse driver because of it? I'm genuinely asking this, GB. Like, if Max went to another team, because Alonso's done this for a couple of teams as well. Alonso's poisoned a couple of teams because he seems to be bad for the sort of team motivation, atmosphere and stuff. It seems to be what happens. So if Max goes to another team and the car ends up the same and the teammate ends up 8/10 off, on one side you go, yeah, Max is incredible. But on the other side you go, but actually, is he ruining teams? What do you think?
But why is that Max's fault? Like if you pretend you're Max Verstappen and you're gapping your teammate by miles, you have been for years, you're a 4-time world champion, you go to another team that's got a good car, you get some really good results. Why is that your fault? Like, who cares about your teammate or whatever? That's their problem, like he drives the way he drives. He does the job he needs to do. I don't see why. I think it more comes down to, and again, I'm not neither of us are engineers or aerodynamicists or whatever. We can't actually put our finger. I'd love to be able to speak to an actual Red Bull engineer or designer to ask these questions. But ultimately, it has to be down to them. Surely, like they are the ones molding the car, and it's got nothing to do with Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen does a great job, and why should he be viewed negatively for the car being hard to drive for his teammate?
But the Red Bull aren't stupid. Like, they've obviously, especially they kept Perez for 3 years, they've obviously tried to develop a more neutral car. So I don't think it's as simple as like, oh, they're just doing it too much around him. But okay, so fair reply though, GB. But let's take the example of McLaren right now, right? So the best car, like decent, whatever. Let's say Oscar Piastri becomes champion this season and has the ability to convince the team to his way of doing things, like Verstappen seems to have over Red Bull, right? Let's say that happens. So then he convinced them to go a certain direction, which massively helps him, but massively shafts his teammate to the extent that McLaren can no longer win a Constructors' Championship. Only Piastri can win. They lose every Constructors' Championship after the season from then on. And then eventually, when Piastri eventually leaves, McLaren are nowhere. How is that a good thing? I accept what you're saying, GB, because ultimately it's up to the team what car to build. But if you're saying a driver is going to push a team down that route versus where McLaren are now, you have to say that's a bad thing. Because Piastri can win the championship in the current car. If he moves it to being undrivable by anyone else, that's a bad thing. That would look bad on Piastri.
I think by that logic, though, I know they haven't done that now. I get that that's your point, is if they went down a route that Piastri pushed, but the point is that they haven't done that, and they've now got a car that both drivers can drive and they clearly love and is performing. So therefore, that's almost on McLaren, and you give the you give the plaudits to the engineers and the designers behind the car and what they've developed together. And then that's how I would apply it in Red Bull's situation, is that the way that it's been developed to this point, it is just not to the understanding of the second teammate. Whereas with McLaren, they can do that, and obviously for that very reason, they would not do that with Piastri, because they would continue on their own kind of not beliefs, but you know what I mean. Their trajectory that they've developed themselves. They brought a car that was a back marker only several years ago or a couple of years ago, and now look where they are, and they're not going to therefore then change their direction because of Piastri or a particular driver. So in Red Bull's situation, it's. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. But it does,
it does. And it's obviously the team's responsibility to build the car. Like, Max doesn't build the car. He doesn't design the car, build it. I get that. Of course, it's still the team's job to build the car. But again, looking at the Alonso example, Alonso goes to teams and does tend to be not poisonous, that's too strong a word, but there's definitely a bit of a negative spiral after Alonso joined the team. This has been happening for multiple teams now. And I liken it to that. Like, if Max does that to another team, to me, that would take a shine off his ability, because he's incredible. He can drive any car. Why does he need to drag the whole team down to follow his... If we're saying that his driving style is incredibly niche and is one of the most niche driving styles we've ever seen in F1, which is what it would seem based on results, why... It's almost sabotage of him to push the team down that direction of this incredibly niche driving style that only he can drive. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that's enough on Red Bull. It's interesting though, because like I said, if Max leaves at Red Bull next season, which I don't think he can, I think he's contracted. But do you know what I mean? If he did, Red Bull are literally struggling to score any points. They'd be down to like, where would they be? Probably like 6th or 7th in the constructors, which is just like no one's thinking that Red Bull are a 6th or 7th place team. Like, not at all. But that is realistically where they would apparently be. So we'll see, I guess. We'll see. I think time will tell. I think history will tell us in the long run. If Max does go to another team at some point, what happens to them? Where Red Bull go, it's going to be interesting. We've got a few years yet to find out the answer to these questions, but
and just to expand as well, obviously Lindblad at the moment is a big talking point. He's doing really well in F2. He's obviously within the Red Bull family, and there is big talk of him making the step up to that second seat. I don't know when. I don't know whether it would be like, again, another driver change this season with Yuki demoted back down to RB or whatever crazy shenanigans we're going to see there, but. Touching back on that point I was saying, with 26 potentially being a chance to hit the reset button and try and find a level playing field for the car that is easy for other drivers to kind of tune to their own liking, I suppose. Lindblad will be a really interesting one because, again, youngster. I actually don't know how old he is, but I know he is young, and coming in for 26, that could be a real interesting one, especially if Max ends up leaving. Do you think he'll leave? I don't think he'll leave. What do you reckon? You reckon Max will leave?
I think he's tempted to. I do. The rumours are that there was a certain date set that Max had to be, his contract said something like, if he was outside the top 4 in the Drivers' Championship at a certain date, he had the right to an exit clause out of his contract. That was the rumours.
Okay.
And I think it might, I vaguely remember it might have been the Austrian Grand Prix or something, but he's already got enough points to guarantee top 4 or something like that. Who knows if that's correct information, but that was the rumor that I saw. So I think he'd be tempted. I mean, I think Red Bull are maybe not having the right trajectory right now. There's a lot of people leaving that team, including, no less than Adrian Newey, and it's a bit of a
where would he go though?
Team.
Like I think Max Verstappen is the best driver on the grid right now, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find people disagreeing with that as a majority. Yeah. However, if I'm McLaren, I'm not swapping one of my drivers. You've got a great balance, great team there.
Great,
if I'm Ferrari, maybe with Lewis, because he's been underperforming so far. But again, he's just joined. He's got there's more to Lewis than just driving as well. Massive marketability and obviously huge profitability there for Ferrari. Leclerc, surely not. Mercedes now locked in with Antonelli. They're not going to get rid of George Russell. So
there was some talk of that. There was some talk that the Mercedes were considering dropping George Russell for Max, but
no, just can't see it. I can't see Mercedes doing that. And then what are you left with then? No one really.
Aston Martin
right?
is the big rumor. Is whether Lawrence Stroll wants to dig deep in his pockets, and because right now, if you're Max, you don't really want to go to Aston Martin. But if you're offered, I was going to say 50 million euros a year, but he's probably already pretty much on that at Red Bull.
Well,
so
to be fair, you make a really good point. If it was going to be any good team, it probably would be Aston, because obviously with it being 26 and Adrian Newey going there, the issue is that much like Hamilton going to Ferrari, there'd need to be a massive whole, loads of meetings in the background and the project laid out to Team Verstappen to prove that Aston are going to be like fighting at the front. And that's surely going to be a really hard sell given what we're watching now with the Aston. So, maybe it would be Aston, but I don't know. Would you risk that if you're Max? I guess we'll never know, because we don't know what's going on in the background with, what Aston's project are next year and onwards. But I genuinely think only Aston. I don't think Max could go to Ferrari, McLaren, or Mercedes. And again, I just to emphasize to viewers and listeners, I'm not saying that Max is not better than the drivers. He is, but why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why would any of those teams make a swap? I think all three of those teams.
I think I agree on McLaren. I think they've got the best car. They've got a good balance. They're going to win both championships this season. Why upset that? I think any other team would find room for him if he's on offer. I think the only exception to that would be, I don't think you'd kick out Lewis Hamilton purely because of the marketability, as you mentioned. If he's driving for Ferrari, they'll sell a lot more Ferraris. Having that brand ambassador there is huge for the team. I think he's the only one. That would mean they'd have to kick out Leclerc. But we're saying Max Verstappen is the best driver in F1. If the best driver, basically fact at this point, is looking to join your team, multiple world champion. I know Leclerc's highly rated, but he's not a champion yet. He's not factually the best driver in F1. Okay, he's not far off, but still, maybe. It would be a strong call, don't get me wrong, but I think you would have a think about it. You'd think about it. Mercedes the same. I think either of those drivers, I think, could go for Max Verstappen because he's that good. Again, would be a big decision to make, but you would. Obviously, Aston would be an easy one, and obviously any lower team would jump at the opportunity, but I don't think anyone would be able to afford it. But because he's just that good. But would he poison the team? This is what I mean. Longer term, if he goes to a team and makes it so the second car is undrivable again, maybe that changes in the future. Maybe we start to go, maybe I don't want Max. Yeah, he's incredible on his own, but the team seems to downfall when he's in the team. So we'll see. This one will definitely rumble on, but it is just a shocking situation Red Bull find themselves in. But moving on then to a team we just spoke about a moment ago, and that is Aston Martin, GB's favourite team, nothing to do with his bank balance. And we're going to talk about Lance Stroll because, of course, Lance Stroll pulled out late of the previous race. Supposedly with a wrist injury, which supposedly was an aggravated wrist injury from a previous bicycling accident, which he had surgery on, and apparently it's been bubbling up 6 weeks. Did you notice some skepticism from me there in all of those statements? Because the other rumour is he was annoyed at qualifying, went out and punched some walls and damaged his wrist and his hand again. And that's why it's so last minute, because I think you don't decide after qualifying. Because these things normally apply a base level of logic and you're normally pretty close to the right answer, right? Why would he or Aston Martin, I know he's a billionaire and I know he's, thinks that he's the most important thing, but still, why would you wait till after qualifying when the team cannot find a replacement for you to do that? I don't think you do. I think after practice, my wrists aren't too great this weekend, maybe we should be considered doing something else. You let someone else have a go in the car for free practice 3 and then qualifying. I don't understand why you'd wait till after qualifying, because nothing happened in qualifying. It's not like if he'd had a crash or something and that had aggravated it, obviously fine. But he didn't. He had a normal qualifying, apparently got annoyed, because he didn't go to the weighbridge. Just to add a bit of meat to the bones of these rumours, apparently someone asked someone in Aston Martin afterwards, like, was he annoyed afterwards? And one of the people in Aston Martin sort of said something along the lines of, he was a bit upset after qualifying. And then after that, the messaging completely changed to just like basically no comment, and just he went to see the the medical centre and yada yada yada. But it sounds to me more like he punched something weakened on his relatively weak wrist already, and then damaged it. That's what I think happened. GB, you probably can't talk too much about this, but have you got anything to add?
I can absolutely talk about it, but I mean that's I haven't read those rumors and I haven't heard them. It's the first time hearing them. In theory, I guess that if he's obviously had a bad quality session, so it makes sense logically. I would hope that's not the case. With how it's been kind of covered up, I suppose, like that. But also as well from the other side of the fact that we know he had the wrist injury a long time ago with it was a Styrian Grand Prix, 2022, something like that. I always forget. I think it was Styrian Grand Prix. Yeah. Sorry, not Styrian, Sakir Grand Prix in Bahrain. He's had that issue with his wrist then. Maybe it's a recurring issue. Maybe that's, you could pin that down to being why he had a poor quali session because his wrist was in pain or whatever. There's so many things, angles you can spin here. I mean, that's not going to sell your headlines, my one. So, yeah. I
because
get
he has got previous, right? He did literally push his train or something, and he publicly apologise for that one. That one was admitted. So he's got previous of a bit of frustration there bubbling up as he gets out of the car. So if you had to guess, GB, which one would you say is true?
I would guess what I said because I'd want it to be true. I would not want in my position, obviously, I don't want what you said to be true, where it's like he's gone and punched a wall, and and then we don't have a second car for the race. It's just one car. Like that's pretty shocking. So, I would want to believe what I said, and I hope that that's the case. But I don't know. I don't think that's what you're going to believe.
Forever the optimist. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do tend to give benefit of the doubt, but as I said, normally if you apply a layer of logic and one makes a lot more sense than the other, things start to, you start to then go, okay, this seems like the more likely situation. So it's just, in that team, let's be honest, it wouldn't be a surprise if they did cover up something like that. I mean, the billionaire owner would just say, I mean, it's basically a breaking point story mode, the story mode from the F1 game, right? The billionaire owner is like, we're not gonna say that he punched something. Absolutely not. Just come out and just say that he just because to some extent it will be true, but I reckon he did have a slightly weaker wrist, but frustration, and then went, oh, I regret doing that. My wrist really hurts now. But it was because of the weakened wrist. It's not a complete fabrication. But that would be my guess. Did that, and then the billionaires have just gone, let's not. Because why would you? If you've got that much power to cover it up, you cover it up. Why not? Like, I'd rather be honest personally, but from their point of view, I kind of get it. So who knows?
Well,
Nobody knows.
On the flip side, think of the headlines and what people are talking about now. It's not really that bad, and nothing's really being blown out of proportion. Everyone's just kind of getting on with their lives. Whereas if it came out that actually the whole point why there was no second car was because Lance Stroll punched the wall after qualifying, I mean, quite clearly that's not going to do him any favors whatsoever, or the team, or the management, whatever. That's not going to look good on anyone. So,
but
it would make
contrast
sense,
that. Right? What if it wasn't the billionaire owner's son that did that? What if it was Isaac Hadjar? And frustrating quality went out and punched a wall. I think Helmut Marko would be like, he's got to sort his frustration out. He's got to sort his temper out. Like we've seen it with Yuki before, and that's been a bit more public because Yuki's it's been over the public radio, and then they've literally come out and said like he needs to calm down, like he needs to chill out. They call people out, they throw people under the bus a bit in those sort of situations.
But to be fair, we've not seen it where to the point where they've missed like a race because of it, because that is obviously pretty serious. But I think in that scenario, fine. But it is same thing. It wouldn't do them any favors if Helmut Marko, if Isaac Hadjar did that, and then Helmut Marko came out and said, "Oh, we don't have a second car. The reason he's not driving is because he's gone and punched a wall after quali." Like that is literally is the same thing. It's going to put all the pressure on Hadjar and all the press, and and also then questioning teams' decisions and all sorts. It's going to have a snowball effect. So I guess it's kind of just managing the PR, isn't it? It's
Yeah, but there is definitely more, a little bit, an extra layer of it when you're the billionaire owner's son. That there is an extra layer because he's just got the control to tell the team, just keep this hush. Like he can just straight up say that. Whereas if you're a rookie or just a driver in a team without that kind of backing within the team, you haven't got that kind of control. The team chooses to handle it how they handle it. Maybe they don't reveal the full truth, but maybe it's not a complete cover up. It's like, oh, he maybe they just say like he injured his wrist after qualifying in the garage and keep it vague rather than completely denying the whole thing. So. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. It was an interesting topic as well as to who's going to cover for him in Canada, which of course is his home race, the next race next weekend or this coming weekend. If he's not fit, and I don't think there's been any confirmation either way yet, there's a couple of drivers that can cover for him, both of which are due to be racing in Le Mans 24 Hours, which is the same weekend, so they can't do both. I understand from rumours that contractually they basically have first dibs, so they would have to cancel Le Mans for that, which is, I think for any other race, you go fair. For Le Mans 24, it's kind of like, brutal, man. That's. I think that's one of the very, very few, from my point of view, my opinion, that's one of the very few races that is pretty much on a level with an F1 race. Is like Le Mans 24 level, or like Indy 500, like these properly famous races. Whereas like any other WEC race, whatever, F1 is just above that. Like it just is. That's my opinion. Everyone will see it differently. So it's pretty brutal, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It definitely. I mean, it's always quite cool to get someone new in the car, isn't it, to see how they perform. That's always a cool thing to see. But yeah,
I think it's this very. That's an interesting point on Le Mans. I think if it was me and I had I had a choice, bearing in mind it's not a Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull. It's an Aston, which is not a highly performing car at the moment. I still would do it. I'd still would drive the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm biased. I'm an F1 fan, of course. I would still watch Le Mans, mind. It's an amazing event as well. But just not only the fact that it's a Formula One car, obviously it's widely considered as the pinnacle of motorsport, but also just how well publicized it is, and just if you would go in and have a good race, it would do absolute bits for your reputation. I'm not saying that winning Le Mans wouldn't, but Le Mans is also a team-based event. F1, if you individually as a driver went and smashed it, then you'd have I think you do really well as a result of it. I think I'd go for F1, but what would you do Le Mans, Alex?
What if you'd had months and months build up to Le Mans and you've been preparing for it and practicing and working with the team and like full on building up to it? I think this weekend is it the practice or the qualifying or something this weekend, the weekend before? I don't know too much about it, but you literally, all that build up, would you still then abandon all of that work to drive a car that, you're reserved for, something about it, but you've not really had enough time with the car. You're going to be nowhere near Fernando Alonso, and you still choose F1, given those situations.
Yes.
Interesting. I think on the face of it, I agree, but I think given that the build-up, I think that's what made me change my mind. But I've worked so hard for this, and it's Le Mans. Any other WC race, any other GT race or whatever, no, absolutely not. But Le Mans is special. It's one of those races to me that's, like I say, on par with F1. It's one of the very few races in the world that is on a par with F1. So interesting. But speaking of, I don't know, speaking of things that GB, how's that segue? Tennis.
Love the transition there.
We're going to talk about tennis. We're going to talk about tennis. Now, I know a little bit about tennis. I know nothing about this spicy final that apparently we've just had. The only thing, and I mean the only thing I know about this final, is I saw one comment from someone saying that it was an incredible final and like one of the best. Everyone's got to watch it. That is literally all I know. I don't know who was playing in it. I don't know what the score was. I don't know why it was incredible. I don't know where it was played. I know nothing else. GB, put it in F1 terms, me, please.
Alex, remind me who was the Spanish tennis player playing in the final? What was his name?
I said something similar to Alcatraz earlier, and I know that made you wet yourself, and you want me to say it here in public. So thanks for that, GB. Go on, carry on.
Alcaraz versus.
Oh, that's pretty
Yannick
close.
Sinner.
I think I said. I actually said. I think it's an Alcatraz or I don't know what I said. Anyway, whatever. Go on. Put it in F1 terms, please. Why was it significant?
Right. Well,
who was driving in it?
I can't. I've tried my best. So if anyone in the comments or whatever, if you can help me with it, how do you put it into F1 terms? I can. Look, we got to a point where it's best of 5 sets, Roland Garros, and these are so it's world number 1, world number 2 rankings, firstly, and I think it's the first time they've met in a major final. Now, you don't have to know much about tennis to know that Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, Andy Murray, their era was special. And they, apart from Djokovic now, who's kind of like dwindling towards his retirement, basically, he's not winning majors anymore. The other guys are retired already. So this is now a new era and a new generation. And this was also the first major final played by players that were born in the 2000s. So this is very much like a marker of the new generation for tennis. And I'm a very casual tennis fan, nothing like F1 or football. I will only watch tennis if there's like a big match on, big final. But I used to play it a little bit, and I also watched it for many years of those kind of games. So I kind of know what's going on.
Right. So far I'm getting that the drivers are Verstappen versus Leclerc, but in the same team. That's how he introduced the players. Because 2 new upcoming people, like not the old generation of Alonso and Hamilton and co. Like you could go even newer than that, obviously, because they're not that new anymore. But two spicy guys in the same car finally having a big battle for a big race. Okay, right,
I'm going to twist your words and say that you're saying Leclerc's as good as Verstappen. Got it. Right. So basically, and this is why I can't put it into F1 terms, is that it was so to win a best of 5, obviously you need 3 sets. So Yannick Sinner, world number 1, was 2 sets to love, who's 2-0 on Alcaraz, and I think he got to, I think it might have been got to 3-1, or was it 2-0? Either way, there was a point where he had 3 championship points in his favor. So if he just wins the next point, it's over. The final's done. And
wow.
99% of the times in these positions, it's over. It's done. Alcaraz came back, and sorry if you don't want spoilers, by the way, because this is absolutely going to spoil it, but it's worth it. Alcaraz came back from 3 championship points down and either 2 sets down or 1 set, and he pulled it all the way back to go to the 5th set. So he basically won like the next 2 sets, got down to the final set, got all the way, so he broke Yannick, or he broke Sinner, which means when it's Sinner's serve. Normally in the men's tennis, whoever's serving, they are likely to win that game. So basically, if the other one wins it, it's called a break, and that's quite significant. If you get 1 break in a set, you usually go on to win that set. Alcaraz broke Sinner in that final set, and you're like, oh my god, he's this comeback's on, he's done it. This is incredible. And then in the very last game, Sinner broke Alcaraz back, so then they were tied up completely in the 5th set, and then it went to a tie break, quite literally, where it's just each point, you serve, you get a point if you win it, and it keeps going back and forth until I think it's first to 10, I believe. And Alcaraz smashed it in the tiebreak. He won by something like 8 or 9 points in the end. But it went all the way to that final tiebreak. And I think the match in total was like 5.5 hours. It set a record, I think, for the longest match in a final in the men's Open era, which, when you factor in, like I said, the previous generation, that is including their generation, that shows how incredible that match was. So,
okay,
yeah, it's definitely so. From your perspective, Alex, the fact that obviously you knew nothing about this other than seeing some headlines, I genuinely would recommend like watching a highlights video or going back on it in some form, because it really was amazing.
That does sound like quite a cool sporty moment. I was imagining it was going to be more of like an underdog type story, but when I heard about this, I imagined it'd be someone that was like outside the top 100 or something in the world and like somehow has won. But it's the top 2 in the world, so I guess it's a bigger battle. And then, yeah, that comeback does sound pretty insane. All right, if you refuse to, I'm going to try and put what you just told me into F1 terms. So what I'm going to say is, wait, who is it that led by loads? The world number 2 or the world number 1? World number 1.
World number 1.
Okay, so Verstappen dominates the first 2/3 of the season, just absolutely smashed it. He's miles in front. He's about to win the championship. It's GG's. There's like 5 rounds to go, but he's literally about to clinch championship. But then something goes catastrophically wrong. But, you know, either he flops or the car flops. Doesn't really matter in F1. And then the guy who's second, we'll call him Leclerc, he then massively comes back. And despite Max having been on the brink of winning the championship with 5 rounds to go, somehow gets all the way to the last round with some pretty close points. He then leads the race in the finale. It looks like he's going to win it. He's dominating. Max is nowhere. But then there's a red flag in the middle of the race. So then Max is then suddenly back in the hunt. And then he ends up leading the race for a bit. And then, I don't know, there's more battling after that that ends it. How close is that?
This is good. This is good. I'll give it an even simpler one. Abu Dhabi 2021, except no Michael Massey. And it's Lewis Hamilton's mistake on strategy.
Okay, yeah, I like that one. I must admit, Abu Dhabi 2021 did cross my mind as well with how, like, well, just generally 2021 crossed my mind with how kind of up and down that season was. But all right, well, there you go. Yeah. I've had to, even though I don't know anything about this final, I've had to put it in F1 terms for you, GB. You should hang your head in shame.
Honestly, it was incredible. And like I said, I'm a pure casual fan. You know, I live and breathe F1 and football, but I was literally like, I was just like squeaking and making noises by the end of it. I was just like, oh my God, I couldn't believe the shots that were being played. And like one moment you'd be like, oh, this guy's got this like in the bag. And then it completely turns around. And the standard of the tennis as well was a joke. The fact that they were completely gassed. They had nothing left in the tank by the time it was done. 5.5 hours of just relentless, you know, top quality tennis. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And to be honest, as a casual fan, I'm now probably going to follow it a little bit closer because I want to watch the next tournament that they're in, the next major that they compete in, because yeah, it was such a good advert for the new generation of it. So again, massively recommend it. And yeah, watch some highlights. I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend watching the full 5.5 hours, to be honest.
You know what? I was going to say pretty much exactly what you just said there. Is that such a good advert for a sport, isn't it? When you have these amazing moments, people tune in for these amazing moments and learn about the sport as they go, and then go, actually, I may watch some. You know, it's unlikely to get someone immediately addicted to tennis, but it definitely gets out there. I mean, I've watched a bit of tennis in the past, so I do know the sort of outline of the rules and stuff. And it's similar, like, you know, moments like Murray winning Wimbledon. I remember watching that one live because that was just such a special moment, and that's what sport's all about. I only really watch F1 and MotoGP consistently, but these moments are so special to watch. Another one that I get reminded of is I think England in the World Cup, Cricket World Cup, that went to, I don't know, some sort of overtime. I can't remember what it was now. But again, I never watched cricket before. I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I was like, this sounds like it's amazing, so I'll watch it. And you kind of then, you're forced to try and figure out some of the rules, aren't you, as you go? And it'd be similar with this. And I guess F1 had their moment, as we already mentioned, in 2021, when it was just so much in the headlines because it was so much going on. It wasn't just two guys battling. It was all controversy of rules and stuff like that. And you know, brake checking and just mad driving. And then obviously the final controversy. And that just gets so many more eyes on it. People go, well, but yeah. Why is that? Like, what just happened? I don't really understand it. Who is Nicholas Latifi? Was it Latifi that caused safety car in 2021?
It was, yeah.
It was, yeah. I did remember that right. There you go. So, yeah, it's just interesting how all sports have these moments. F1 had theirs a few years ago, and it just must bring so many more eyes to it.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I think and I hate to talk about Abu Dhabi 2021 after this, but it is worth mentioning that was such a special year. I think that was the best year of Formula One I've ever watched. I think in hindsight, on reflection, I think it's probably fair to say that it was an unbelievable. Even though the driver that I wanted to win the title didn't win the title, it was unbelievable. Like we didn't realize it at the time, but we were so spoiled for like loads of those races across the season. It's just a real shame that it wasn't the driver's mistake or a team's mistake that decided it ultimately, because that's the big difference. Obviously, we've Leicester City winning the Premier League in 2016, unbelievable fairy tale story. Did bits for football. You likened like a England winning the World Cup. Obviously, something like that would be huge. The tennis final we watched, huge. It's just a real shame that I guess to compare to the tennis final, it would be like the tie-break was decided by an umpire's decision that was really controversial.
Yeah,
and then all the headlines right now will be like, that is horrendous. What happened? And it takes it in a whole different light. So yeah, that season.
would ultimately be bigger, though, I think. I think just like it happened in F1, and this is why I always say, when something controversial happens, I say, I love this. I love this. And it's the content creator in me as well that means we can get more views on this kind of thing.
Yeah, this is you in a nutshell.
Yeah, it is, because I'm like, this is a talking point. This is what sport is all about. I said it literally, was it in last episode? I said, this is what sport is all about. Everyone watches the same thing at the same time, and it gives thousands of people to come together and talk about a specific thing. When there's controversy, happens in football with VAR and whatever else, when there's controversy, it gives you something to talk about. That is what sport is all about. It's not ideal, because I agree with 2021, like Abu Dhabi, it would have been better if Hamilton overcame Max Verstappen that season, despite everything. That would have been an amazing story and a better sporting story. But ultimately, it was a bigger story because of the controversy. And I think the same with this tennis. It's an amazing sporting story by the sounds of it. But if it was decided even in more controversial circumstances, like I say, a dodgy umpire decision or something, that it would have been bigger. I'm glad it wasn't. Don't get me wrong. I'm not calling for everything to be horrendously controversial. I'm just saying controversial moments, we kind of need to enjoy them a little bit to some extent.
I think, I completely agree. I just think there's a real fine line to draw between being too controversial that then it questions the sporting integrity, I think, which it very much did for Formula One. And I think with the tennis final, I don't disagree that if it had been decided controversially, it might be like more over the news. But to be honest, I think it's already everywhere. I think we're talking about this now because of how good the final was. So I think, to be honest, does it need that level of kind of like questionable sporting integrity twist to add to the headlines for it to blow up? I don't think so. So I do agree with you, but I do think there's definitely a line where if you go too far to the point where the sports integrity is dragged through the mud, then obviously then that has a opposite effect where everyone's talking about it, but then in the wrong way, and suddenly people are angry for years and so
I completely agree 100%. Like, I don't think a sport should ever aim to be controversial or try and do something that's going to cause some drama, because I agree sports should be about the sport, but I think these moments naturally get created within sport a lot of the time. The Michael Masi thing was a little bit different, but all the other drama we had between Hamilton and Max was created by the drivers because it was such a close fight. Two different teams, hard to overtake, and sport at the end of the day is about elite performances and overcoming your rivals. That is fundamentally what sport is about. And sometimes when it's that close and the margins are that fine, it causes people to do things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have done if the margins weren't as fine, and that causes a bit of drama, a bit of controversy sometimes. So I do completely agree. I don't think sports should try and create content. That'd be horrible if they purposely installed a bad referee, or, you know what I mean? Like, that would be so bad. That would be awful. So I completely agree. Sports should always aim to be have as much sportsmanship as you possibly can. But this is what I mean. That's why you've got to sometimes enjoy the controversial moments, because they shouldn't be created. They happen naturally. You know, some people say, "Oh, I stopped watching F1 because of this." And if it was caused by purposeful controversy generation, or just by straight bad management that was left unfixed, I kind of get that. You kind of go, "This is almost reality TV. This is artificial." But when it's caused by natural circumstances, I think for me, I just enjoy them. I enjoy the ability to talk about these things, and yeah, it's all good. But anyway, guys, well, that is somehow 48 minutes of absolutely winged podcast. We genuinely look, I'll read out the exact notes we had for this 48 minutes of waffle. Red Bull second seat, Lance Stroll injury, tennis off topic, question mark? That was it. I'm not joking. That is about what? 15 words? Not even that. But about 10 words, and we've somehow talked about it for 48 minutes. Oh, GB, we're a different breed, mate. Different breed. But anyway, guys, hopefully it does, yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode anyway, guys. And we have been Downforce Debrief. We waffle every week. Normally it's a bit more centered around F1 and stuff that's actively happened this week. But hey, it's been good. It's been an interesting talking point. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys have too. Don't forget to drop follows on whatever platforms you want to listen or watch on, and we'll catch you next time.